CashFlow Diary Podcast, episode 264.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other CashFlow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today. And here's why. Because we are going to do something today that we have never done. You're like, how is that possible? You've got hundreds of episodes and there's something you've not covered? Yes, that is very, very true. I'm excited about it because I know if many of you right now, if you're listening to me, you already know, you could probably hear the tone of my voice. You're like, uh-oh, this is going to be one of those where I need to grab a pen and paper and make sure I pay attention. You are absolutely right. All right. Today, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about how to actually ask for the money. What does that mean? Not just sales per se, but how to actually ask. Actually ask. Because have you thought about the fact that you might not know exactly how to approach a potential investor, how to get started? I'm willing to bet that a number of you've got a great idea. You want to get it off the ground, but you don't know how to open your mouth properly to get it done. So today's guest is going to help you with that. He's been called the Pitch Whisperer, which I absolutely love. He is none other than John Livesay. He is a top sales expert funding strategist with over 20 years of experience. Let me translate that for you. That means he's been told no more times than you, and that's why he knows exactly what to do. Does that make sense to you? He has the ability to give you the words that helps people open their wallets and fund your deals. This is what I get excited about because he's done a ton of work with startups and angel investors. And I know you guys have great ideas that need to come to the market. So we finally got somebody who's going to help you make that happen. So help me welcome John Livesay. John, you there?
I'm here, Jay. What a great intro. Thank you. I love that. I've been told no more times than most people. That's fantastic.
Am I wrong?
I never counted them up, but I'm sure you're right.
I'm like, there's no way you do what you do for 20 years. You've been told no at least once and you've learned how to deal with it. There's just no other way.
Yes.
No other way.
We can certainly talk about how to deal with rejection because that's the number one fear that people have that prevents them from being in sales, living their dream, asking for the money. So we can dive right into that if you want.
Yeah, we're going to get there, but I tend to ask everybody the same first question, and therefore I must ask you. Okay. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. You know, Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, all these people, right? And I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton in common. Occasionally we get dressed up. Sometimes maybe we wear a cape, or at least we think we have a cape on, and we go around using our special abilities to save other people or improve the quality of their life. Also, like superheroes, entrepreneurs have a beginning. Superheroes weren't always super. They were often regular, ordinary people till something external comes into their life. They make some internal decisions and go, you know what? I'm going to go out there and change the world using what I have now discovered. So what I want to know is, before you had the Successful Pitch podcast, before startfast.net, before you were cracking the code with funding, before all of these things and your 20 years of experience in understanding how to help entrepreneurs, we want to know, who is John Livesay?
Well, I'm happy to answer that question. And I just love the fact that you compared entrepreneurs to superheroes, because one of the things I work on with people is to get them more confident. And one of the keys to becoming more confident is to strike the superhero pose. Have you heard about the superhero pose?
I'm guessing Superman is coming to mind. Let's just put it that way. But go ahead and tell us.
Well, Jay, the superhero pose has been proven by Harvard research studies that if you literally stand up with the fantasy that you have a cape billowing in the background, and when I give presentations to people, I literally bring my Superman cape and have the whole audience stand up and do this. So if you want to be listening and do this, stand up and do it. Put your hands on your hips, shoulders back, head up, and you hold that for 2 minutes. Your testosterone goes up. Even if you're a woman, your cortisol stress level goes down. Doctors, a lot of them do this before surgery. They've done studies that if you shoot baskets and then hold the pose for 2 minutes and then shoot the baskets again, you dunk more baskets. Wow. So this is a big secret and a great tool already at the top of your show for your listeners to take away. The minute you need to improve your confidence, you're trying something new, you're going out for a job interview, you have a big sales pitch meeting, whatever it is, hold the superhero pose for 2 minutes, even if it's the day of your event. I had one of my clients doing this. His wife walked by, gave him a kiss on the cheek. So you never know what's going to happen when you strike the superhero pose, Jay.
I like it. I told you guys you're going to want to take notes. So this is good. So, yes, tell us how all this got started then.
How did all this get started? Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and I used to be a newspaper boy back in the day when people delivered newspapers. And I would get up at the crack of dawn. My dad would help me roll the papers, and I'd go out door knocking, and delivering the papers. But I had to do the whole thing. That was my first entrepreneurial gig. I would knock on the doors and say, "Hey, do you want to subscribe to the local newspaper?" Nice. They would say yes or no. And then I would be the one that would deliver it every morning. And then I would be the one that would come back at the end of the month with my little card for people to check off and pay me. So I not only had to sell it, deliver it, I had to collect the money.
Nice. Accounts receivable. So I love it.
Everything, yes. So that was my first entree into, I can do this, and I can convince people to do something. I had to give them a reason to want to subscribe, to the paper, as opposed to just occasionally picking it up or that kind of thing. So that was really my first entree, if you will, into selling. And I majored in advertising at the University of Illinois. And to me, that was the combination of show business meets business. And I loved it because it was all about grabbing people's attention and entertaining them with a really good headline, if it was a print ad, or a really catchy commercial, music, if it was a TV commercial. So I started off my career in advertising, and I just am so fascinated by how people are persuaded and motivated to take action. And that led me into a career at Condé Nast for over 15 years in sales. And the last thing I was doing for them was packaging all their brands, GQ, Vanity Fair, Wired, et cetera, and print and digital and even pre-roll video. And they asked me to find startups that they could invest in or help them monetize the brands. So that's really how I got into working with entrepreneurs and startups, because I realized they don't know how to pitch. They're very techie for the most part. And they come in and talk about numbers, and nobody buys numbers, Jay. They buy your stories. So I teach people how to become
Whoa. Hold on. I need everybody. I know you were washing dishes. You're probably on the treadmill. Okay. I want you to repeat that one because they really need to hear that.
People remember and buy your stories, not your numbers.
Yeah, that's key.
Plato literally said storytellers rule the world. It's in our DNA, Jay. We used to sit around the glow of a campfire back in those days and tell stories to each other. Now we tend to sit around the glow of a PowerPoint presentation in a meeting, but we are wired to listen to stories. When I tell you I want to sell you something, you get very, your arms crossed, you go into your left brain analytical, how much is this, is it worth it? But if I say, let me tell you a story, you relax. Now we're in the right brain where imagination occurs and storytelling occurs, and people buy emotionally and back it up with logic, not the other way around.
Indeed. And I'm so glad you said that and you led with that. When I'm working with a number of our students in our community, they often want us, every time they bring me a deal that I know what's going to happen, the first thing they do is start pounding me with a bunch of numbers regarding this is the price and this is what it's worth and this is the income, blah, blah, blah. And I can always tell that they're one of our newer students because that's the first thing they do. And I'm like, I don't care about the numbers. And you can see the look on their face like, why not? Let me rephrase. I don't care about the numbers yet. Tell me the story. What's going on? Why is this even here? Let's talk about that. That's where the deal is. And I was just like, did he just say that? He said that. That's awesome. Now, I think there's also something else that others may have missed that I would love for you to talk a little bit more about, because you got the privilege of learning it at a very young age, and it may inspire a few people to pick up a paper route if those kind of still exist. But you said you had to give people a reason to subscribe. You can't just expect them to magically say, yes, here's my money.
Right. I mean, I learned that at a young lesson. And then when I was in college, one of the jobs I had was selling ads for the school newspaper. And I would go around to the local pizza places and say, hey, you want to buy an ad? And we're going to reach the students. And when the students are trying to decide where to go before a movie, after a party, they'll see your ad, especially if you put a coupon in it. And those people, Jay, would literally write me a check from their personal checking account because it was all their small little business.
Right.
And I had to give them a reason that this was the right audience at the right time, and we're going to measure it with a coupon and, not just give them back what the ad cost, but give them a return on their investment. And it was very measurable. So I learned up front that you have to tell people, paint a picture, as I said, you did, imagine the students are trying to figure out where they're going to go. It's your pizza place or another place. Which one did they see an ad with a coupon? They're trying to save money. They're in school. They're probably going to come to your place. So that's the picture I painted to get them to say, okay, I'm going to try this, because they could imagine that being something that would be their reality, and they knew they were close to campus, et cetera, et cetera. So whether you're pitching to get an ad in a local school newspaper, getting someone to subscribe to a newspaper, or getting someone to invest in your startup, which is my specialty, you have to paint a picture.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Your startup, because I tend to look at every unique real estate venture as a new startup. Every apartment building I buy, that building is a startup. Yes, it's going to be part of the global organization, sure, but it by itself is its own thing. So it might as well be starting from zero. What fascinates you with working with entrepreneurs in the startup phase? I mean, it seems to some it might be considered a lot of excess babysitting.
Well, once I explained to the founders that to sell yourself, you just have to be yourself. And the easiest way to be yourself is to
Man, did you just say that? Hold on. See, guys, I'm telling you, grab your notepad. Say that again, because they're not listening. I need them to hear this.
When you want to sell yourself, just be yourself. And the easiest way to do that is to become a storyteller.
Yes.
And once you've done that, then it takes all the pressure out of having to force someone to buy from you. Maslow said, if the only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, you tend to go around looking for a lot of nails to hit. Right? And so our whole goal today, with you and I talking, is to give the listeners some tools besides a hammer to force someone to do something they want them to do.
Indeed. Right now, I'm just like, dude, at some point, I'm just going to let John talk. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to sit here and listen, because
so fun.
I love. Well, it's like when you have kids, right? You'd say, "Hey, this is what you should do. Hey, this is what you should do," and then hopefully now with you saying it, they'll actually do it. So now I'm excited. What would you say then is how do people find these investors, get these startups going, actually make this happen for themselves?
Well, one of the first things they have to realize is that the investors, whether it's from family and friends, an angel group, or down the road, maybe a venture capitalist, they all tell me, we invest in the jockey, not the horse. And you are the jockey, and your idea is the horse. So take that in for a second. Most people come in and start pitching the idea, and instead of pitching themselves. So you have to pitch yourself first, because the idea might even pivot several times before it becomes what it is. And so the investors need to know that when they put their money into something, that you've got the grit and the tenacity and the skills to roll with the punches and figure out a way to make something work if at first what you have doesn't work. So that's really.
Did you say if the first version doesn't work? I just want to make sure I heard that correctly.
Yeah. I mean, even the biggest things we've all heard of from one of the people I interviewed, Michael Edelhart, Social Starts up in San Francisco, they invested in Pinterest at the beginning. And they said the founders came to them and said, hey, we want to figure out a way to digitize the behavior of people sticking pictures on the refrigerator with a magnet. And he said, oh, okay, that sounds like people would want to do that. We'll give you money to do that. They created it. Nobody did it, Jay. And they said, most founders are so afraid that they're going to have competition. But the real fear is consumer indifference to your product.
Yeah.
So they had to figure out a way to pivot. And they said, well, what if we created celebrity pin boards that people could follow and see what's in a celebrity's closet or something? And once they did that, then people started following those and then were willing to create their own pins. And even YouTube started off as a dating video site. And they said, oh, that'll be a much better way than just still photos to, flip through. But they realized people were too uncomfortable talking about themselves on video for dating, but they loved to upload videos and watch them. So they shifted, and the same team created YouTube. So the idea pivots many times, but it's all about the team.
Indeed. Yep. And I like that because oftentimes when we're starting something, we're so afraid of making a quote unquote mistake. And I'm just like, no, use that. That has the information so that you can make the necessary corrections to find the success that you're actually looking for.
Well, here's another big takeaway for your listeners. I tell them to everybody, focus on your progress and let go of being a perfectionist. Because if you think everything has to be perfect before you start or put it out there, you'll never do it. So the whole goal is be a progressionist, not a perfectionist.
I like that. That's good. Guys, that's called write it down. Excellent. So what would you say you've dealt with a number of investors. So I think this is going to be fun and eye-opening for a number of people. And I have no idea what you're going to say, but I think it's going to be fun either way. What would you say the top 3 things that investors wish that we as entrepreneurs knew when we were going to actually ask them for some money?
Well, one of the things that they wish they knew was how to give a good pitch, because they hear about 2,500 pitches in a year and only fund 25. It's 1% of the pitches they hear get funded, almost like an agent looking for the next big actor, right? So they really want you to be good because they're looking for good deals, but most people come in with a really bad pitch that's not rehearsed or practiced. And most people say, oh, John, I don't want to practice my pitch. And I said, I don't want to sound like a robot. And I said, well, okay, let me hear what you have. And Jay, it's a bunch of uhs and ums, and it's not easy to follow, and it's confusing. And I think one of the other things that investors wish that the people who pitched them knew was, don't tell us everything. Just tell us enough to want to know more.
Wow. That's important.
It is, because basically when you pitch somebody, the goal is not to get money out of that. The goal is to get the second date. And it's all about, it's a 10-minute pitch, 10 slides, maybe 10 minutes of Q&A. They don't give you money then. They say, congratulations, you get the second date. You get to come back and have a longer Q&A with more people in the room. So once you know that, it so much changes what you're saying. You don't have to explain everything. They said, and don't waste a lot of time giving me a big product demo. Tell me, why are you uniquely qualified to execute this idea, and who's on your team to help you? And then how big is the market so that I could see a return on my investment? And it's all about empathy, Jay. If your if your listeners remembered nothing else, I would love for them to remember that it's all about empathy. So the more you show empathy for the investors, putting yourself in their shoes, what do they care about? And then you show them that you have empathy for your customers. When you understand the problem better than anybody else and can articulate it, then the investors assume you have the best solution.
I love it. 100%. So what would you say are the top 3 mistakes that people are making in their pitch? You've heard a ton of bad ones, so please share so we can save some people right now.
Yes. In fact, I even have a free PDF that I'll give your listeners to download that describes them. But one of them is, we don't have any competition.
Okay.
we're so brilliant and this is so cutting edge. No one, and then the investors think, well, there's no market then, right?
Wow.
Or the other one is, if we only get 1% of all the people who take a taxi, we'll be hugely successful, right? That's not good either.
Oh, goodness.
And then the other one is, you know what, Mr. Investor, I'd love for you to sign this non-disclosure agreement because my idea is so special and so unique that I'm afraid that you'll steal it. So sign this non-disclosure agreement.
Oh God, I bet you could put together a reel that would just be funny, like a whole bunch of jokes or something.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what you've heard. Now, see, here's what I also know. I know there's someone right now who's listening who either just said or was thinking that they were going to lead and say that very same thing. So let's help them now. What would what are the elements of a great pitch, like superstar, like the people that you've seen give a great pitch? You're like, oh yeah, this one's going to be good.
Well, if someone agrees to let you pitch them for 10 minutes, you still have to grab their attention in the first 90 seconds so that they literally invest their time to pay attention to you for the rest of the 10 minutes instead of checking their Facebook or email. So you must have a great opening to a pitch. One of the clients I worked with, he was saying, I'm not really comfortable with pitching. I don't have a lot of confidence around that. And I said, all right, one of my exercises I have my clients do is stack your moments of certainty. Write down all the times you've been successful at something and write them all down and look at those before you go in to pitch because it'll put you in the right mindset. And he said, God, that was such a powerful exercise. I said, well, what came out? He said, well, I grew up in the Netherlands, but I'm originally from South America. And when I turned 18, my parents took me back to South America, dropped me off naked in the Amazon jungle to survive for 2 weeks because in my culture, that's the rite of passage into manhood.
What?
I said, I know. Guess what, Martin? We just found the opening to your pitch because they're investing in the jockey, not the horse. I said, Martin, what'd you learn in the Amazon jungle for 2 weeks? Well, I learned how to focus and pivot and persevere. I said, great. We're going to take those lessons from the Amazon jungle to the concrete jungle of being an entrepreneur. And then Jay, when he had that practiced and honed, he won a pitch contest and got funded because the investors go, that's memorable. That gives me goosebumps. I'm going to put my money on the guy who survived the Amazon jungle because he'll be able to figure out anything else. That's a good opening to a pitch.
Yeah, you can start. I mean, that's a good opening to a movie. That's a good, just a good opening to just about anything. But you said something that I want to really highlight because oftentimes, people, I know I used to think this way that they wanted to hear all the stuff that was going to happen very, very, good, and I've learned over my years of working that it's not, yes, everybody knows what happens if it goes well, but I think a lot of times they're examining to find out that when it doesn't go as you plan, that you're going to be the person to stick in there and figure it out and or fix it. Yes.
It's all about tenacity and grit. That's what they're looking for, those characteristics. So the best way you can't just say that to somebody. You can't just say it.
Right.
I never give up. You have to tell them a story where you had to overcome an obstacle and there was a good outcome. That's basically the hero's journey. So if you think of Star Wars, right? You as the entrepreneur are Luke Skywalker and you have some problems to face and you look for your mentor, Yoda. In this case, you or I are probably some mentors to people and we help them, get over those humps. And then they get where they want to go. But if we just break down that story I told you about Martin, there's some, take you behind the curtain a little bit. Would you like that?
Yeah, well, I'm starting to think of Jungle Book, just so you know.
Yeah.
In the back of my head, I'm like, there's gotta be more there.
Well, it's just behind the curtain of storytelling and grabbing you by the opening. So let's look at the structure of that so your listeners have some real great takeaways on how to craft a story. When you craft a story, the first element is exposition, right? Who, what, where, when, all that stuff. So you notice that I described Martin, 18 years old, naked, Amazon jungle, right? When he was practicing that, sometimes he forgot to say that in his culture, that's the rite of passage into manhood. Right. I said, Martin, if you don't say that, it sounds like child abuse.
It does.
So he's like, oh, right. So make sure you give enough to paint that picture of who, what, where, when, but not too much you bore the audience. Then the second part is, there's a problem. He's naked in the Amazon jungle. I said, how does he overcome it? right? So that's the solution. And then the outcome is he wins the pitch contest and gets funded. So exposition, problem, solution, and then what's the outcome of that solution being resolved?
I'm telling you, when you were saying it, I was like, is he kidding me right now? And then you said rite of passage, and I breathed. I think I stopped breathing until you said rite of passage, and then my mind instantly jumped. Well, he must have. He's alive now, so he's okay. Because there were so many thoughts going through my head at that exact moment, like, dude, how do you live through that? I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, how do you eat? There is no McDonald's. That doesn't work like that. Anyway, I think everybody's getting the point. It's not about necessarily what happens if everything goes right. Although that's important, it's also, what are you made of? And more importantly, do you have people, like who became his mentor in that? Did he actually find a bear to hang out with and sing songs? Anyway, these thoughts start going through my head when you start thinking about what the story that you're relating to us. So here's a question though. When it comes to, I'm assuming, because like you said, when we're in this startup, we have a great idea, but we don't know how to communicate that idea. What are some things that you've learned or seen that help people to learn to communicate just better in life in general? Okay, so you're probably figuring it out that in many different ways and for many different reasons, we have to learn occasionally skills that doesn't sound like these are the things I should be doing. What I mean by this is that you, the entrepreneur, we have to go out there, we have to lead, we have to communicate, we have to have a vision in order to be able to guide and direct and hopefully achieve company objectives. That's not always easy to learn. It's not always easy to know what to do. It's not even easy to know how to direct yourself, let alone other people. And it's a skill set that you have to learn over time. To that effect, here's what I've done. We've put together a course that should help you with building you to the point to where you are able to build a business. So specifically, if you've never done this before, you want to know what is it going to take, you want to get some idea of some of the basic skill sets, we put together a course. It's called Cash Flow Foundations. So you can go to CashFlowDiary.com/foundations. CashFlowDiary.com/foundations. If you'd like to take advantage of it, by all means, please do. It'll just give you a big taste of, or a little bitty taste, I should say, of everything that we have available. But at the end of the day, you will have some of the knowledge that you need to actually get your business off the ground and make it run. How to turn your idea into cash flow and the step-by-step process to make it happen. With that being said, let's get back to John and find out what more could make a great CEO.
Well, when you communicate, it's all about being concise and compelling. What's the shortest amount of words I can use to convey what I'm trying to explain to you? And it's all about telling a story, painting a picture, taking someone there, and describing a problem in such detail. Let me give you an example. One of our clients, Cole Smith, has a military background. He served in Africa and the Middle East, and he wanted to create a platform to keep the school safe during medical emergencies or, God forbid, another shooter coming onto a school. So that's his personal passion. That's why he's uniquely qualified to solve this problem. And he talks about this in terms of what the problems are. And he paints a picture and he says, you know what happens now when an ambulance comes to a school is they have to go to the front desk and find out where to go. And it takes 15 minutes for them to get there. And then the parents call each other on some kind of antiquated phone tree, right? It takes forever for everybody to get notified that there's a problem. And then they don't know where to go. Imagine if there was a platform that instantly in 5 seconds informed all the first responders and all the parents that there was a medical emergency and that the ambulance got a floor plan of where the problem was and they didn't have to waste time at the front desk and they could go there right away. Well, you don't have to imagine it because we've created it at Tresit Group and we've got schools using it and they say not having our platform is like not having 911.
Wow.
We're here to So people are like, oh, that's really clear. And that really tells me what the problem is. And that tells me how your solution is so great and how big the market is and how many schools there are that could use that. And then you take it beyond that to airports and hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. Investors are very intrigued. Obviously, Cole's one of our big success stories. He has the offer from not one, but two investors. So that's really where you want to get to. I have a whole ladder that I talk about of how do you go from invisible to irresistible.
Nice.
And it's, we can get into that ladder if you want, because there's a lot of similarities between that and dating, interestingly enough.
No doubt. But the thing that's coming up for me is that I know that as people are listening, there's somebody listening right now who's saying to themselves something to the effect of, John Jay, I'm not that guy. I'm not the stand up and pitch person, but I got this great idea. What would you say to that person?
I would say to that person, the reason you feel you're not that guy or girl is because you've never done it before. And you have to conquer what I call the 3 faces of fear. Would you like to hear what those 3 faces are?
Absolutely.
Well, I personally had to go through these when I started my podcast.
Tell them, because they think everybody thinks just getting on a podcast is easy. I'm telling you, go back and listen to episode number 1. You will go, wow, yeah, all right.
So the first fear I had to face, because for me, Jay, it's really helpful if I put a face on it. I'm afraid, but if you don't know what you're afraid of, you can't fix it, right?
Right.
So the first fear was, okay, what am I really afraid of here? Well, I'm afraid of rejection. We talked about that at the top of the show. And it's so important to overcome the fear of rejection, whether you're selling, starting something new, et cetera, right? For me, it was like, what if I asked people to be a guest on my podcast and they say, well, hey, can I hear some episodes? There aren't any yet. You'd be the first, right? So, you might get some people to go, well, then no. So what I've come to learn from all the no's I've gotten over the years and all the different things I've been involved with is I never take rejection personally. And once you let go of that, it doesn't mean that I'm not a good person. It doesn't mean my product's not good. It doesn't mean my podcast won't be good. If someone says no, that's fine. That's their choice. It's not a fit. I just move on. I don't take it personally. When you let go of taking rejection personally, it really frees you to not be so afraid, right?
Yeah.
Then the second fear, and this one showed up, was the fear of failure. What if I
know nothing about that ever.
No. I get people to, agree to be on my podcast. And then what if nobody downloads it? What if nobody listens to it? I've spent all this time and money. I'll be humiliated, blah, blah, blah. Well, fortunately, I found someone that helped me get my podcast on Apple's, new and noteworthy, and just so grateful for the success of it. But one of the people I interviewed, Jay Sammet, wrote a great book called Disrupt You. And in it, he said, don't fear failure when you're in a startup. It's just feedback. Keep going until you get a zombie idea so great it won't die. How wonderful is that?
I'm stunned.
So I'm like, all right, fantastic. I no longer fear failure, just feedback. It's just not my zombie idea yet. That's fine.
and it's the thing. I have this thing about zombies, but that actually was the part that stumped. I was like, what? Zombies. And anyway, but yeah, I get it. It's just, I like I call it a feedback loop because like I said, it's how you make the necessary correction. So it makes perfect sense. What's the third phase?
The third phase is the fear of the unknown. And Jay, this is almost what stopped me because I'm like, the list of things I don't know about or I didn't know a year ago about starting a podcast was a mile long, right?
Right.
What mic do I buy? How do I edit this? What questions should I ask? How do I find guests? How do I promote this? I mean, it's just on and on and on and on. And what I found was the cure to that is to collaborate.
Yeah.
Find someone else who's done it. Find someone else who does it for you, even better, which is what I did. Found a guy named Harry Duran. His company edits the podcast for me. And all I have to do is create it, and then he takes it from there. I'm like, oh, my God, that's, hours of work, as you know, per episode to edit it, transcribe it. So if you can get somebody else to do that tech part that you don't really love, That's the way. Just collaborate. So fear of rejection, don't take it personally. Fear of failure, it's just feedback. Keep going till you get a zombie idea so great it won't die. And then fear of the unknown, find somebody to collaborate so you don't have to figure it out by yourself.
Yeah, that unknown one I think is huge. I know for many investors or would be investors, it's like, but what if the tenant doesn't pay rent, or what if the building catches on fire? What if nobody rents it? What if? I mean, and we can stay in the failure and unknown spaces a long time.
It's analysis paralysis, isn't it? I love that phrase, analysis paralysis, right? You just get so, like I get, and maybe you don't want to be spontaneous with a large amount of money, but then if you just keep spinning your wheels and analyzing it, you just freeze, and it's analysis paralysis, and it prevents you from, it's just a way to hide because you're afraid.
Got it. So let's assume then that somebody's out there, they hear all these things, but they still, like you said, that you hiring things done. You want it done for you. What's your position? How do you feel about just hiring someone to pitch for you on your behalf?
Unfortunately, that is not something you can delegate out because the investors are investing in you and they need to hear it from your lips. Now, if you want to have somebody like a co-founder who's the tech guy speak with you during the pitch, you can do that and split up the 10 minutes. You do 5, he does 5, or she does 5. But they still needed to hear it from you, because what they think, Jay, is if you can't explain your vision to me in a way that makes me want to invest, how are you going to get other people to join your team? How are you going to get your customers? Yep. So you need to figure out a way to get over your fear. One of the things people tell me is, well, I get nervous. I get butterflies in my stomach. And I said, the goal isn't to get rid of the butterflies. It's to get them to fly in formation.
Ain't that the truth? That is, I think I always find that funny, because it's like, do you think I don't get them? Like I'm somehow immune? No, they come just as much as any others to make this work. I would say then a lot of the work that you do, a lot of the things that you are bringing out of individuals are actually already present. We just have to uncover them. Would that be accurate?
Yes. Well, Arthur Ashe has a great quote. He said, the key to success is confidence, and the key to confidence is preparation. So the more prepared you are, the more confident you are. And guess what? That makes you successful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why do you think so many of us are naturally unprepared, so to speak? Why do we you should have a ginormous market, because it's like we all have these great ideas, but very few of these ideas ever come to light. And it's because a lot of things that you're mentioning right now, because people say, Jay, I can't get the money. I can't get the money. I'm like, you didn't open your mouth. That's the problem. It's not like the money's not there, but why do you think this problem exists anyway? Why do we have this trouble?
Well, it's lack of confidence, lack of practice, and lack of training. So if you are going to spend all your money creating an app and all your money on a patent to protect what you have, but you don't invest in yourself on how to be a leader and how to pitch people and how to get yourself in front of the right investors, getting warm introductions to investors is everything, because your network is your net worth.
Yeah, indeed. So what would be Go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, the way to get yourself in front of the right room, one investor said, if you can't figure out a way to get to me through a warm introduction, you probably can't figure out a way to find your customers.
Wow. Well, wow. That was a good one. I hope you guys wrote that one down too, because that is key. I told you guys time and again, database is everything. Who is important.
Yes.
What would you say then? Because we could say we have a crisis of confidence, right? That's what it sounds like. So how does one build that? I mean, the world, day to day, it's not like sitting in traffic is going to build my confidence.
No.
So, if I'm working a job, my boss isn't going to do it. Can't depend on the weather to be sunny all the time. So what's the process for increasing one's confidence then?
Well, preparation and practice is number one. Second, getting those butterflies in your stomach to fly in formation by taking that nervous energy and putting it into use, making a gesture when you're presenting. stacking your moments of certainty, and the superhero pose. Those are 4 great takeaways right there. If you use all of those, you'll be much more prepared than most people will. And my business partner, Judy Robinett, wrote a great book on how to increase your connections. It's called How to Be a Power Connector. And she gives you step by step how to take who you know and figure out what kind of warm introductions you could get from them that could lead you to meet someone. But we really focus on getting people, once they have a good pitch, connected to the investors we know. But we're not going to introduce anybody until they have a good pitch. Most people think, if I can just get in front of the right investor, I'll get a yes.
Right.
And it's, and they don't have their pitch ready, and they haven't thought through what the investor cares about. They're pitching them as if they're someone who's going to buy the service as opposed to someone who's going to invest in it. It's a very different audience and a different mindset. So once you have all of the things ready to pitch, then we make the warm introductions to the investors we know. That's the secret sauce, is that combination of a great pitch with warm introductions, get you in the right room so you don't waste time talking to somebody who's never going to fund what you're doing, because that's not what they fund. But people don't just, right? They're like, I'll just talk to as many people as possible.
Right.
You need to be strategic about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get that. Which brings up this interesting thing that you're doing with your podcast. I would love for you to take a moment and let everybody know what the Successful Pitch podcast is about and how it came about. And more importantly, why they should be listening to it, because I think they should.
Thank you, Jay. Well, I started working with founders on their pitch because they kept saying, look, I'm a tech guy. I'm not really comfortable speaking, and I don't know how to tell stories, and I don't know how to sell. And so I started working with people doing that. And they said, but you know what I also need is an introduction to an investor. Do you know any? And I said, I don't. So that's what made me decide to start a podcast where I would interview investors and get them to share with me their criteria on how they decide which pitch to fund. And now it's grown and grown. Judy was my second guest on my podcast. And now we went into business together. And she and I now co-host a private Facebook group for all of the podcast guests. So we have this network of investors that look for good deals and trust us to send them to them. So it's increased my own confidence, because now the investors tell me every week what they're looking for, and I know who to introduce them to. So the podcast has been a tremendous gift, and there's all kinds of wonderful insights. And I interview not just investors, but people like Jay Samit or Tim Sanders, who has a great book out called Deal Storming, which is a combination of brainstorming and deal making. So there's all kinds of great ways to figure out how can I pitch, whether it's pitching to get someone to hire me, get someone to buy my product, or get someone to give me money for my startup.
Now, I'm just right now, this next question is totally selfish so that I don't get inundated with emails. Do any of those people focus anywhere on real estate?
Not per se.
Got
it. As far as the investors typically are looking to invest in things that are scalable.
Got it.
So there's a lot of tech stuff, obviously. The next Uber, that kind of thing is what a lot of investors are looking for. But it doesn't have to be that big. It could be something that makes the medical profession faster, or a fintech, or social media, or we do have a guy that's got a product called Bubble Ball, which is this really cool sport that you can play with, like being inside this plastic ball, and it prevents injuries and tons of fun. So, but he's got 1 million in traction.
I think I saw that on Facebook.
And he, it's really, you can Google or YouTube and watch people play it. Yeah. He needs money because he's got such demand to buy more product for inventory, and then it's franchising that. So that could be huge growth. So that's not tech, but it's beyond just putting money into real estate.
Got it. I just wanted, because otherwise we were going to.
Well, I know.
I was like, okay, so that everybody knows what's up. You're clear. The point here that I'm making, though, is learning how to say, what to say, and to whom to say it is still name of the game, and you got to make those things totally happen. So, John, I got a question here, and yes. When you're going through this process, as the entrepreneur, if you will, how do you know that your idea is even good enough? Like, so to speak, how you go, this is, would you say, a zombie idea? How do you know it's a zombie idea?
Great question, Jay. Well, one of the investors told me when I was interviewing them, if you're selling dog food, I want to see the dogs eating the food. It's that basic. So it's called a product market fit. You have to do some testing before you spend all this money building something and not knowing whether people want it or not. So there's all kinds of ways to do that through crowdfunding. You can see if people would be interested in, giving you money if it hits a certain goal. Really talking to your customers or potential customers and saying, would you buy this if this existed? And would you pay for it because it would solve your problem? And how much would you pay for it? And try to get some traction. And even if it's just a letter of intent from somebody that they would use this, that's the kind of things that people are looking for to say, is this even feasible? Would people buy this? And then what's your business model? How are you going to make money on it? Right? A lot of people think, I just get a ton of users and then I'll figure out how to make money later. Not anymore.
Yay. Silicon Valley is going away. Yeah, that drives me nuts, by the way. It's like, what? Right. You don't care about profit? You just, right. that makes no sense to me. Awesome. Now, I know this. There's a number of people who are listening right now who are like, how can I get more of John? Because this dude is dropping knowledge and I want to pick it up and I want to make sure that I can get my next deal funded, and John clearly can help me. So what's going to be the best way that they can stalk you and track you down, John? Please tell them.
Well, the easiest way is to just text the word funding, Funding, to 66866, funding to 66866, and I'll send you a free PDF of the 3 mistakes to avoid when you're pitching anything. And then you can go to my website, which is John Livesay, Liv as in Victor, ESAY.com. You can listen to the podcast. There's all kinds of blogs on there, and there's a free ebook, The 5 Superstar Investors Share Their Secrets, that you can download for free as well. Awesome.
Now, final question here. Let's, because I also know that this is happening to somebody right now. There's someone who's, they made the decision, or they think they're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to become one of these superheroes. That maybe they're even standing in front of the superhero outfit store and going, all right, what color cape do I want today? But in the back of their head, John, they have that voice. And I know you know that voice. You've done battle with that voice. You have coached people who have done battle with that voice that is in the back of their head that is still loudly talking to them, telling them, are you sure? I don't know. It might not be stable. All of those things that tends to come up. What would you say to that person right now if you knew 100% they were going to do exactly what you said?
I would say, first, realize that everyone has those same thoughts. And you are the thinker thinking the thoughts don't think you. And when you get control of your thoughts and realize that you're in charge, I heard Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and has a great book out called Big Magic now about creativity. She said, every time I start something new, fear comes up. And I just tell it, take a back seat. I'm the driver.
Nice.
And, just realize that fear is going to show up all the time. It's part of our survival mechanism. And you know what's really interesting about fear, Jay, and those thoughts of you're not enough, this won't work, don't do this. But it's the same boring note over and over again. Don't do it, don't, no. And so when you go, oh, it's that same message, no matter what I try that's new, or whether it's, trying a new sport or trying to start a new business, that same message comes, and it's kind of boring because it's the same message over and over again. And it's like, you know what? I don't need it to survive. I'll figure it out. And, you acknowledge it and you say, I heard you. And here's the 5 things I'm doing to make this happen.
Nice. And wow. Yes, exactly. And that's what I've been trying to communicate in so many different ways. And you have a much better way of putting that one. And I love it. And I definitely thank you just for taking the time. I mean, because it has taken years for you to develop and become who you are. And more importantly, you care enough to help other entrepreneurs have a shot at their own, thing, which is, I think, is commendable in and of itself. So I thank you for taking the time to talk with us here today at the Cashflow Diary.
My pleasure, Jay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? That means you are going to text funding to 66866. It means you're going to go to johnlivesay.com. It means you're going to download the ebooks. You're going to get started because there is no time like now o'clock. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.